Chicago, and welcome to another Wednesday night with Moment with Vivacious. I am so excited about things that's going on. Saturday, I was at a great meeting, bringing forth many promises to the people, and I met a young man who had so much potential and so many plans within himself to build community. And I asked him to come on tonight, moved everything out of the way because transportation is something that we do not understand how important it is in the development of our communities. And without it, a whole lot of things stop. But I'm not going to even get into it. Call your friends, call your families, and look, remember to press like. And if you have not subscribed, press subscribe. It's important to people that come and take their Wednesday nights to talk to you, to see how many of you are there. If you don't press like, you don't come. So look, don't only press like, subscribe, and also share, because this is a very informative topic that's going to build our own homes as well as our communities, our cities, our states, our nation. See you in just a moment. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious, a freedom ride where we the people gather to build ourselves, our family, our community, and our nation. For the sound of America for Progress has reached critical mass. Understanding that we must put aside our differences to focus on the greater good. This is a place of collaboration to rebuild and restore our nation. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, how are you tonight?
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful. We are so excited to hear from you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us why transportation is so important for us at this time, especially in our lives?
Yep, I sure can. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Clyde Fleming Jr. I'm the president and CEO of CFJR Safe Travels Corporation, and I'm also the architect of public health mobility infrastructure. It's a framework. I'm a retired Army officer. I've spent my career solving complex problems, operational challenges with really one goal in mind: helping people. And today I apply that same people first systems mindset to public health accessibility and mobility. I believe everyone deserves to have the opportunity to live a healthy, independent life with dignity. And my work focuses on making sure access doesn't stop at the front door of a hospital or a clinic. It extends to the community where people live, work, and receive care.
So we want to thank you, and we thank Barbara and Sigrid for joining us tonight. And we just really want to dive into this topic. Could you, because most people wouldn't even think, why are we talking about? We are Vivacious Speaks, the New American Revolution, building in a winning America for everybody. And we understand that's going to only start with the conscious awareness of our society. That's where, when we become conscious, then we can grow. So this is a very, I mean, when you first said that, I said, okay, why? So, and tell us, why would that be important to us who's looking forward to building a strong people America, a democracy again, a country run by the people?
Yeah, so I think the title of the conversation kind of fits perfectly because to me, transportation, or more accurately, mobility, is really a conversation about freedom. Freedom isn't just about having choices; it's about having the ability to reach those choices. When you say transportation, I actually kind of think mobility because mobility is really about access access connects people to healthcare, employment, education, food, worship, family and community. And so without access, many of our freedoms become theoretical instead of practical. There's social determinants of health, and there are also political determinants of health. So a lot of people think mobility or transportation is about buses, trains, vehicles. I think mobility is the part of the infrastructure that determines whether or not people can live healthy, independent lives, like I mentioned earlier. So when mobility breaks down, access breaks down. When access breaks down, other investments make that we make in health outcomes becomes harder to reach. So that's why I think it's important. It's often overlooked or maybe looked at an afterthought, but transportation, mobility, access is really important.
So I want to talk a little bit about, if I could bring us here in Atlanta. Recently, I don't use public transportation. I don't use public mobility. But here in Atlanta, they changed bus routes. They cut um, some people's way to work. Can you talk about it? I don't.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
can, and I'm going to talk about it in a way that doesn't necessarily point fingers at anyone either. But when you think about it, one example is Marine Village in Southwest Atlanta. You know, after a nearby bus stop was removed, many seniors suddenly, had to walk about a half a mile and cross busy intersections just to reach transit. And I don't know the last time you tried to run across the street, but I know we don't want our seniors trying to run across streets and beat traffic. So on paper, that probably looked like a really good routing decision. In reality, it became a public health issue because it affected seniors. It affected whether or not people could safely reach healthcare, groceries, their community, and those seniors didn't lose like their legal freedom; they lost practical freedom. Because access became much harder to them. And so, in my, I mentioned that I'm the president and CEO of CFJR Safe Travels. I spend a lot of time with seniors as well as people with other mobility issues. And, things that seem minor to us right now is a really big deal to them. So, moving a bus stop, changing different things becomes a really big thing for them. So, just kind of taken away from that, think that, just think, what does mobility look like when from what you understand as public health? Infrastructure is simply a route change. And if we look at it like that, we'll see a little more clearly the impact of the decisions we make.
So how can things be made? Even the people that Miss Fleming, even the people that still have transportation, or mobility. How can what can we do as a community to improve those things and make it better?
Yeah. So, me personally, when I looked at, hey, so what can Clive Fleming Jr. do about this? And those experiences interacting with seniors led me to develop what I call public health mobility infrastructure, or PHMI. And I realized we're trying to solve public health problems with transportation solutions, and transportation does solve a lot of the problems. But what we really need is public health framework for mobility. So the PHMI is built on the idea that mobility is essential uh, public health infrastructure. Because healthcare doesn't begin or end at the hospital door. People still have to reach care. People still have to return home safely. People have to go pick up medication. I had a person call me to ask me to go pick up medication for them from um, one of the stores like Walgreens. And you know, in doing that, they had to give me like their driver's, they all kind of stuff. They had to go to extreme measures to get this medicine, and it was really important for them. And the last thing is, people need to remain connected to the services that help them stay healthy. So that's the framework behind, uh, you know, uh, the operational arm of CFDR Safe Travels as well as Public Health Mobility. So we need to, and just to kind of button it up, is what do we need to do? Um, we need to make our voices heard. We need to go to forums. We need to reach out to our uh, political leaders, our MPUs here in Atlanta, and let them know the impact to MARTA. MARTA needs, the people that control the
That's
buses.
public transportation in Atlanta,
Yep,
y'all.
yep, and they need to speak out and let them know the impact of that policy decision.
And um, Barbara has something she's asking. She said, "What can be done to reverse that to help the seniors?" And she wrote the decisions to help. What decisions? I don't know if she's speaking of the community or if she's speaking of leaders, because we need to get into the political part of transportation of mobility as well. But can we address Barbara?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm not I'm not kind of dialed in on what things can be done to actually turn back the process of doing that. I would imagine with any other huge infrastructure change that it costs tons of money, time, and planning. So I don't even know what it takes to turn back the hands on the clock with that. But one of the things that is going on, there's a nonprofit called Happy Talks, which has started a fundraiser, just to kind of help bridge the gap for and I can provide the link to the fundraiser to bridge the gap for those seniors. Because it's not just, I said Berean Village, but it's more than just that, senior facility that is impacted. And so the thing that I'm doing is help being part of that bridge with my company and helping with getting seniors from their uh, the place that they live to their first bus stop, or even to their shopping or their um, you know where they're picking up their medicine. So as far as the policy piece, um, I don't know the exact steps that would happen, but I know it starts with letting your local leaders know how you feel about it. So going to the forums, emailing them, going to the you know city council meetings, the county commission meetings, things like that, and they all have public comments, so you can go there and take advantage of the right that we have to speak to our elected leaders and let them know the what we're going through.
And most people wouldn't even connect. I want to say two things: transportation with politics. But what do we not connect politics within our lives, right? So I want to talk about the politics of transportation. And look, I do feel for seniors. I'm AARP member, but anyway, um, we also have disabled people. We have in transportation, we have people trying to get to work, because if I don't get to work, if I can't get to work, I don't have a job, so I lose my insurance, so I still can't get health. And so many, many, many people, um, young, old, disabled, are having transportation issues right now.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that?
we can. So there are just so what kind of got me here is, once I started my company CFGR Safe Travels Corporation, I just started trying to do research, wanting to understand what was going on in my community, where we are now and how we got there. And so one of the things that uh, I did, there was a couple of books I read, and I'll tell you the three names. The first was The Political Determinants of Health by Daniel Dawes. The other was Inclusive Transportation by Veronica Davis. And then the third, was The Color of Law, and that's by Richard Rothstein. And what those books do, and you know, individually and collectively, they talk about the politics behind some of these things that have happened, especially like inclusive transportation. It talks about something we already kind of see. If we don't design systems for seniors, people with disabilities from the beginning, we're designing barriers to the system, right? So just built in, have you ever? And it's not just because of what I do now, but I go to buildings and I see, like, I'm like, you know, this is accessible, but it's not usable. And the same thing can be said about a lot about transportation systems. In the public determinants of health, Mr. Dawes, you know, talks about how health outcomes begin long before someone enters the hospital. They're shaped by public policy, including the decisions that influence mobility and access. So these are all things that um, we should be talking about. These are things that our leaders should be telling us how they plan to help and address these issues. And then the last one, the color of law, just it just talks about how infrastructure decisions have been, never really been neutral. There've been kind of hidden agendas behind them. Where we place roads. You'll hear people that talk about, I lived in this neighborhood, and next thing you know, I'll say I-20, but no matter the city you live in, you can speak on a interstate or something for urban renewal that came through that neighborhood and wiped out a community. So where we place roads, transit investment shapes the opportunity and access for generations. We're still dealing with those impacts. So uh, those three books are just where I would start, just to kind of help you understand the policy impact to where your bus stop ends up.
Okay, so it's really it's really what the word I'm just gonna use a word that may not be the perfect word for where I'm trying to go with this, but it's really like um it's bigger than inconvenience. It's bigger than inconvenience when you don't have a word, when you don't have transportation, or when that comes up, like the freeway come through. I've lived here forever. I could afford to live here, but now the freeway's coming through, so it's going to take transportation somewhere else. So something comes up that takes transportation somewhere else out of my ability to reach it. It is unreasonable to think that a senior can walk 6 blocks, a half a mile, to get transportation, but it don't only stop that senior from getting to help. It stops help from getting to the seniors because more people are going to move out of that way, move away from that way. How do we create? I'm saying all that to say, I think this is gonna bring to a point that I'm trying to make. How do we create new ways and new thoughts and new, if we create something that interferes with their money because it's all about their money, just like you said. Just like the other day we were at work and I said to one of the people who was an older man who was very ill. I'm gonna put it nice like that. And I said, why are they signing this man up for therapy? She said, what they sign you up for don't have anything to do with the money. If you don't have any insurance, you don't have any money, you go to hospice. If you have money and you have insurance, you're going to go to therapy. So whether you have money or not is going to decide where you go, not the help you need. So we understand that politics is not helping us where we go. Politics is helping whoever is going to get the money, get money. It's not helping us. So what can we create in our community except a major boycott like the Montgomery boycott? What can we do to help ourselves?
So first, I'm not necessarily against boycotts, but I think when we speak our minds, when we leverage our economic power that we have, we can get our voices, um, heard. And just like you were talking about transportation, getting health and different other things, services to you. I think about the healthcare deserts, in the southwest part of Atlanta, hospitals and just southwest period, going down towards you know Union City, South Fulton, things like that. Um, you
like
know,
like the Ninth Ward in New Orleans. I have a lot of New Orleans people, so I compare. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, and so I believe in voting. I believe in uh, holding our leaders accountable. I think that if we focused on the the where we live, the local parts of it, we can start gaining traction and uh, mobility. That's what we're talking about. You can get some motion going to get the things that you want. I go to, and this is just me speaking honestly, but you go to a lot of events around election time, and folks they talk about how they're for seniors, and this is the one thing that people need to understand that you know hopefully we all get the opportunity to become a senior, right? So the things that we're building now will be things for us to use later. Funny thing, my grandparents, my grandmother, grandfather, Manning, South Carolina, they had this big blue house with this porch that was so high. And me and my cousin, we used to run and jump off this porch to see how far out we can get, and we'll mark the line. And I look back at that porch now, I'm like, what were we thinking? So, that's how we're going to be with so many other things. That's going to be that big porch. you know, when it comes down to the transportation system, when it comes down to where we place hospitals, where it comes down to the systems that we put in place to help people with mobility issues and all that stuff, we're going to think back on it like, what were we thinking? And so we need to listen to the people that are there now that are expressing their discontent with the way things are and put these things in place. And, I think, a couple of principles to follow, people first, freedoms requires access, mobility makes access possible. And then, a plug for my PHMI, but PHMI creates the condition that makes access sustainable. And so that's where we start. We start with people first. We start with getting our voices heard. We start, uh, holding leaders accountable, holding our friends accountable. There are probably folks that need this help that aren't even participating in the process to elect the people that will make those decisions. So we need to get engaged.
And right, when we charity, it looks like Charity Christmas says completely agree. Um, when we cut off mobility to an area, we cut off finances to an area.
Yeah.
It cuts off finances coming in, so we don't have anything financially sometimes to build our community. So I may be asking the same question in a different way, and if I am, I'm sorry.
I'll
So
just answer it a different way.
I'm sorry.
I will answer the question in a different way if you
Okay.
ask the same question differently.
How do we self sufficiently? Two things. I'm gonna have two questions. How do we self sufficiently um build finances to even begin to talk about creating the transportation in our community or demand existing transportation, demanding a door be open to our community for existing transportation that we're paying for anyway because we're paying for taxes. And let me answer this too, because a lot of people don't. I keep saying transportation. I'm gonna try to say mobility. That's what I mean, everybody. If I say transportation, many people do not connect, and this is really big because this is the job we have
Hmm.
that we've taken on in the Democratic Party. And this is not a political conversation at all. Okay, I just want to make that announcement. Um, how do we? So many people say I don't do politics. I really don't like when you talk politics. I hear that all the time. But everything in your life is connected to politics. And tonight we're talking about mobility, and that's definitely connected to politics. So can you connect those two to make them understand that politics is the life of what we need?
Yep.
I've said that, but it don't mean it's the life of what we need. But help me out
Well,
with that.
well, one thing that I believe, and I know it's true, and others will, hopefully say the same, is that every every major advance that has come about, whether it's the, you know, Civil Rights Act, the voting rights, all those things have come at the expense of voting, which is politics, right? So being mad ain't gonna the protests that I like so much really aren't gonna do it either. It's the every stride that we've made as a country, and it affects everybody. Like so everybody benefits from it, and where we need to start with educating people on what it takes um, to get there, and understanding not doing politics means you're not helping yourself, and you're not understanding what's going on, you know. And so I understand though where they are. I understand how they get to that position. They're tired, they're frustrated, they see the same things happen time and time again. And so it's easy to get disenfranchised. It's easy to get, um, to feel like change isn't going to happen. And I kind of feel like that's where we are. And I think that uh, we need to figure out a way to, you know, show people that hope is still alive, and that we need to, um, you know, do something. I remember one of the things that I was talking to a friend of mine about, you know, freedoms and different things being like a boxing match. And I said we were like in round two. And he was like, my friend, I get what you're saying, but I think you're wrong. He says, I think we're like in round five, six, or seven. And just thinking like that means that we are in round six or seven, and there are people that were like me that were still thinking we were in round two. So, we need to get in the fight, basically, and realize where we are in the process. Uh, the need for change hasn't stopped, and so people should hopefully realize that we need to do more. And uh, access to transportation, mobility, whether it's inside your neighborhoods or outside, kind of determines everything. I can tell you. So that's what I think. Just broadly, everybody could do. I can tell you what I did. You know, I built a company. You know, that is a public health mobility infrastructure company that is designed to bridge the gap between transportation and the outcomes that we need. But it's the infrastructure. Is you can throw 1,000 vehicles at it, and it may not help if the infrastructure is a problem. And so instead of just kind of being upset, you know, I did something about it. Um, and I think others should too. I hope I didn't just
Talk
oversimplify.
to us. Talk to us about the infrastructure.
Well, infrastructure is what
That,
we were. Go ahead.
um, that we need to build, or go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the infrastructure is kind of what we've been, you know, talking about. So when I say infrastructure, and I'm talking about the PHMI, what that is, it's a system that helps ensure people can safely and reliably reach healthcare, public health services, essential community resources by creating the conditions that you know keep people, places, and public health operations connected. And that's the infrastructure. You know, bringing people together, partnerships, accessibility, mobility systems, and operations. So accessibility doesn't stop at the front door of a hospital. I mean, if you think about it, just think about all the things that have to get right, that have to go right for you to make it to, uh, you know, uh, your doctor's appointment. Especially if you're a person that doesn't own transportation, you have to make it to that bus stop on time to, you know, if you're riding the bus or the MARTA, or you have to have money for the Uber. You have to take time off from work. There's so many things. There's a lot of stuff that's not just hopping in some kind of vehicle and getting there. And those are the things that the infrastructure needs to address, in my opinion.
And can we talk about um, who decides the fares or the prices for even Uber? You know that's governed. Is the thought of the people and the price of transportation? Can we talk about that?
We can, just to be transparent, I don't fully understand how uh, the prices are uh, directly made. I would assume that there are some other, but I'm assuming. I want to say that no, I don't know, but just different things like uh, the price of fuel. You know, the amount of money it costs to maintain the vehicles, the equipment, the whole nine. And I will look into that and kind of understand where that comes, but I don't know
And how do
exactly.
we balance? We understand. Look, I'm just a few cents away. I think it's not even 50 cents away for being $5 a gallon to put in my car. Um, we understand that it costs us businesses more, but understanding that transportation is the bottom line almost to everything else. How
I
can
can tell
we?
you how we got there.
I'm sorry.
I can kind of tell you how I think we may have gotten there.
And
Is
how do we bring a balance, and how do we fight that? Who do we fight with to be included in the adjustment? Thank God for Kemp again. I don't think he put the taxes back on the gas. Maybe he did. That's why my $5. I don't know how I missed keeping up with that because that was a big one I kept up with. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I would say the first thing I would look at is why is gas almost $5 a gallon, and you work back from there. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna land back at
The
some.
war this man started over here.
Well, what I was gonna say
Another subject,
is
but
that we're gonna end up back at a vote that we made or did not make that put a person or people in position all the way from the local level to the federal level in charge that led to that. And
exactly.
so that's what I say is how we got there. And how we get there is, uh, understanding, what success is, right? So it's not necessarily uh, what's the best way to put it? It's well, what I want to say is mobility and access and all those things need to become part of the treatment plan. It needs to be part of, there's, the measure of what makes, you know, how are we measuring success? And measuring success really is by how, the decline of or the amount of people that get to make it to their doctor's appointments or those things, and then figure out from there what are the things that cause that. I propose having uh, some listening sessions, where we actually hear from, not listening sessions where we hear people and then we shout out solutions right then and there, but a listening sessions where we actually talk to uh, the people impacted by this and hear them out. And then from there, we build the policies or we build a glide path on how we solve those problems. So it goes both ways. I said we go vote, we go talk to our leaders, and the other side is, as leaders, we need to listen to the people and what they're telling us is going on. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. But only thing I would add to that, um, only thing I would add to that is we have to not come up with what's wrong for us. We have to add to how we're gonna make it right. What
Hmm.
we need, if our needs are not expressed. But I wanna I really wanna talk about this because I felt some kind of way. Like, oh my God, this is real. When I started talking about, I'm sorry, Vivacious Speaks and what it is and how we're building our nation. And I turned to you and I said, would you like to be a guest on my show? Do you have something you could help build America? And you said, yes, transportation with such a passion. Could you give us, wait, Sigrid says, make a lot of sense. It makes, what you said makes a lot of sense. I'm telling you, it smacked me in my heart. Like, I felt the passion. I felt a burden. I felt like, no, we need to bring this out. Give us some of that passion that I saw in your eyes and I heard in your voice.
Well, I am very passionate about it, and I get more and more passionate about it as I, meet people. I'm involved in a couple of different, you know, I'm retired as well. So I'm retired and I own this business, and I have time to make it to meetings and go to different things. Like I've gone to the Commission on Aging meeting. I've gone to Archie has these quarterly breakfasts, and there's so much. I've even gone to the Auburn Avenue Research Library looking up stuff. And I know that everybody doesn't have time to do those things, but you know, my passion led me to go and understand, so that when I'm speaking on these things, I'm not speaking on emotion, with emotion only. I'm speaking on facts. And I truly believe that transportation, mobility, um, those are the things that impact us. Everybody, whether even people that have a vehicle, they get there, they're just taking it for granted that they get to walk outside, hop in a vehicle, and go wherever the heck they want. And so, you know, that's why I believe that. I believe that, you know, it's not about, and then transfer. It's not just like about the number of rides provided. It's about how many people can live healthy, independent lives, because the systems run on work, and transportation is it. When you look at the just look at Atlanta, and you look at the way that the 285 or the MARTA lines, and if you are a person that lives, let's say, off Camp Creek, and there's a job for you in downtown Atlanta or somewhere like that, whether or not you get that job is determined by whether or not you can get there. And if
Yes,
you can get there, you can put jobs out wherever you want, unless they're bringing the jobs over here to Camp Creek. But the reality is, people need to make it to uh, their places of work. Um, or if we're thinking that you know transportation is too much, then bring the things that people are trying to get to these areas: grocery stores, hospitals, all the things that's causing that, the 75, 85 traffic going through downtown, because people are trying to get to to those uh to those services. So that's why I'm passionate about it, because I know wholeheartedly, I have the data to support it, that transportation, accessibility, mobility does a lot to solve those problems. It don't solve all of them. I think I said it already, but it sure makes uh, some things easier to deal with.
exactly. And it's a door. Transportation is a door open to every other issue. So it's almost the bottom line problem. Like we said earlier, getting finances in and out of the community,
Yeah,
getting care in and out of the homes is, you know, getting help to take care of your parents and your children. It's all about transportation.
yeah.
It's
And we'll
awesome.
go back to the freedom. Freedom isn't just about having rights. It's freedom is about having real access to exercise those rights.
Mhm.
And transportation, mobility, that's freedom.
And when we cut that freedom off, we lose. If you start stacking it up, we can lose everything.
Yes,
Like I
ma'am.
don't have a job, I'm gonna pay my rent. Not me, I don't have a job, but a person that don't have a job, how do you pay the rent? How do you get health care? You don't have health care no more. You can't. Um, and these people don't care. I passed in a neighborhood today where someone was evicted. I said, I wish I knew them and could just, pack some of their things in my car. It looked like they had even just taken the television off the wall and not paid it. But people losing their jobs and losing their transportation. My friend, I don't have a car. I don't need a job. I need two jobs, but I can't get a job because I don't have I don't have a car. So I understand. I understand the importance of transportation. I thank you for coming to talk to us about transportation. Did I miss anything? Anything you prepared to say, I wanted to say about transportation that we did?
I just a closing thought. You know, having a means to get somewhere, whether it's your own vehicle, access to the transportation system, all those things can easily be overlooked, and you don't realize how important it is until you don't have it. It's almost like uh, stubbing your toe. You don't realize how important your big toe is until you you get hurt and you can't walk right and you're looking funny. The same thing for having a vehicle. So just or having access, just not having access to uh, transportation to get to your job. That job I was telling you about. So a 15-minute trip turns into almost 2 hours when you look at getting up early, making it to for those seniors, walking the half a mile to that to that train station, which is going to take them at least an hour. You know, it just kind of starts compounding the problems. And imagine all the things that you can't do because you're now trying to navigate making it to somewhere. So the last thing I'll say, like I said, is transportation is an important part of the freedom conversation because mobility makes it makes access possible. And when people have access, they have the freedom to live healthier. They have the ability to live a more independent life, and they're they're dignified. And I think everybody uh, should live a dignified life. And I thank you. This has been awesome. I had a lot of stuff to get off my chest, and you gave me an opportunity to kind of talk through it. It's kind of good to hear it out loud.
And it opens up, and people may direct questions. Things grow, you grow. So if you need to come back and say, hey, we need to address this and we need to address that point, please know that you are welcome. And anybody that's listening, if they have a subject that they think that we can build America, because this conversation is not only gonna help um, Atlanta, it's gonna help the country, and it's gonna help people. Like we didn't talk about those people, but people in rural areas. I work in the medical field, so some of us drive an hour or two. One job I had to drive an hour every day for 4 years. I worked at that job. It's the in and out and the building of our country starts with the transportation. And that's one reason that Atlanta prides itself on being the transportation hub of America, the open door to America, because we are that and we are big, but we have to keep it going in Atlanta. It has to work for everybody in every area, and it has to keep us connected with the rest of the country. And I'm so glad that you brought up rural areas and how these people are going to survive without a connection to the money, to getting around, to the services, to growing. How can we grow as people? How can we grow our communities um, without transportation? It was really good. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you can come back at any time.
I'll be back.
Thank you.
Bye bye.